Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Manifest. Quite a few things went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. First of all, we have Cal getting very sick, and he's speaking Bulgarian. He's actually saying this phrase over and over again, "Help me." And this is connected to the guy, Marco, that he ran into on the flight. The fact of the matter is Marco physically touched Cal because like none of the other things prior to this, Cal has ever had such a direct connection with anything. Even the Thomas situation, it never had like he was able to find his way to Thomas. But I think the Marco situation is because Marco physically touched him, and when the connections were drawn, like Marco's essence was there, or maybe it's just in general. Maybe it's just because whatever Cal's situation is, it's intensifying, or maybe the experiments Marco was going through were like set of circumstances that led to their connection. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. It might just be like Cal is a giant, radio dish like receiving signals from everybody, and just the more distressed and disturbed someone is, the stronger it is. So, but I think it has to do with the fact is that he physically touched Kyle during that time, but I don't know. We'll just kind of have to wait and see in that front, but it's a complicated situation all across the board because obviously you have Ben trying to find a way to help out with this Kyle situation, but like, he's trying to explain everything to Grace, but Grace isn't willing to listen because for her, it's like when you found out about Kyle being sick at first, you kind of spiraled and I spiraled and you kind of cut me off. And so that kind of all made me kind of cut you off. And it's just like, I don't want to go through that again because she wants Ben to kind of be more of a father rather than trying to be a scientist or trying to find this and that and just kind of trying to look for outside stuff. It's like, everything's right here. We need to help Kyle like this. But it's like, if they go down the route of trying to heal this infection he has, which includes like using antibiotics, it could interfere with his cancer treatment. They would have to stop it. And even Sanvi says it later on, if they stop it, this will kind of get him booted out of it. Because the fact of the matter is Sanvi had a fight to get him put into the program just because of his circumstances. They weren't willing to really use him as an example just because it's like, oh yeah, his data was so incomplete for the past 5 years, obviously because of the flight situation, so they didn't want it to kind of mess up their good percentages and stuff like that. So that kind of ended up being their whole thing, if you remember correctly. So it turns into, like I said, Grace not like having a hard time believing Ben, and so like he's trying to be open to her about like everything that went down. I mean, to be fair, once again, it's like we disappeared. Like a plane went missing for like 5 years. You even said it yourself. It's something that even the smartest people in the world are trying to figure out. So the fact is that she wasn't willing to give Ben that leeway, but I guess it's just because it's just built upon like, oh, this is how you were beforehand. This is just more of that. Like there isn't something greater to this. Like stop trying to figure things out and just be here. She ends up getting mad at him later on because it's like he wasn't there when she needed him to be, because she ended up breaking down because she was scared because it's like Cal is sick and something bad could happen, like things could take a turn for the worse. So even going as far as saying like, I need you to not ever leave me alone again in a situation like that when I need you most, which you kind of go, yeah, because probably next time there won't be any forgiving you. Because I was halfway expecting her to kind of like get Ben locked up, probably even say like, oh, Sanvi can't be around my son anymore because she's crazy too. I was thinking maybe that'd be kind of the route they end up going down. Still, it doesn't mean they won't do it later on. And it also seems like Bethany is still arrested too, but I'll kind of get to that in a second, just kind of like in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I'm just curious to see like what ends up happening with all that, because I'm pretty sure like it's going to be a point where it's kind of like Ben has no choice to leave, and like Grace is going to be pissed at and probably going to complicate things even more between them. The real interesting thing too is that Ben confronted Agent Vance, and it's kind of like, oh, I know about this and that, kind of bringing all the information, the pictures and stuff like that, proving like, oh, we know where you're hiding all those 11 people, because it turns out like, oh man, there was a bus that was taking people to shelters. There are people that are foreign nationalists. There are people who have no living relatives, like people who wouldn't realize that they're missing. And it's like 11 people. There were 4 buses transporting people, and then one disappeared with the 11 people. And it's like, okay. And it's like, oh, Vance is obviously behind it. But Vance's reaction of being like, what's up with this? Is like, no, he's not. the NSA, at the very least, Vance, I won't say the entire NSA, but it seems like at the very least, Vance has no idea what's going on here. The fact of the matter is he talked about it like other agencies are blocking him on like, okay, he's trying to get information about what this is all about, but none of them are responding to him. So it seems like the government is in more of the know about this situation. Not everyone, certain government heads probably know a lot more about this situation, or at the very least are trying to figure out this situation from a different route, because the NSA is trying to figure out things on their own way, but they're not going to the extent. So that goes, even the whole Kelly situation, that's her name, right? I'm blanking. I think they even brought it up this episode. The passenger lady that got killed, her body being taken, that's a different government agency. Well, actually, it turns out this is potentially connected to a company called Unified Dynamic Systems. It seems like they have government contracts, so this might not necessarily 100% be a government thing. It might just be like a powerful company, which for whatever reason knows more about this than it kind of lets on potentially. There's also that lady, Fiona, who's on the TV. Like, it's kind of interesting because her name came up before, was it the previous episode? I remember her name coming up before, and it's just like Mackenzie. Literally, when I was writing notes for this episode, I kept referring to her as Mackenzie for some reason. I don't know why. Michaela happened to just look at the TV, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I wonder if she kind of connected. No, because she's one of the flight people too. So obviously she's going to circle back in some shape or form too. But yeah, because I think someone had made a whole big point about her, because she's like the most famous person from the flight because she's such an outspoken person. I forgot what her whole deal is, but she's like pretty important. So, and so him, kind of going back to it, even the whole Vance arresting Bethany, that is just because it's like he's trying to get to the bottom of things. He's kind of going about things a little douchey, because they're even essentially saying like, oh, we'll frame, like the moment Jarrett decides to try and not help us with this whole Michaela situation, we'll kind of put him in a situation where we can essentially blackmail him into helping us, which is kind of like, okay, they kind of do some sucky and shady stuff, but they're not the ones behind all of this. They are kind of potentially the biggest means of helping figure this out, because Michaela and Jarrett actually went to go investigate, and they came across the place, and obviously there were guards everywhere, like fully stocked with weapons and stuff. And it ultimately led to Michaela actually explaining everything to Jarrett, which even he was kind of having a hard time digesting it. I still say he took it a lot better than Grace did. Grace is kind of the most probably of like, Ben is crazy. Even saying Sanvi's crazy. And the fact is that she has that little bit of animosity, because there's that already situation of Grace was kind of like, no. Do you think this potentially could be part of like Cal's cancer treatment? But it's like, no, that same treatment is being used on other people, and no one else is showing signs similar to Cal's condition in this episode. But it's just kind of like, for her, it's like, oh, like, Sanvi, you're the one trying to convince my husband. You're the one encouraging his crazy thoughts about this whole situation. This is my son's life that is on the line, and it's a complicated mess. Like I said, this is all some experiment to do what? I have no idea. Maybe there's something in their bodies that is something like whatever it is that kind of made them the way they are, whatever it did to them, whatever it did to Cal. Like, luckily they don't have Cal, so they can't get, because I think Cal would probably be the missing piece of whatever they're doing. But they're doing something, but it only affected Marco. And I'm wondering, is it because of the connection between him and Cal? Was it working both ways? Was it making both Cal sick and him sick? Or was him being sick what led to Cal being sick? Because it seemed like he was kind of fine at the end of the episode. So maybe it's more so like the fact is that, after moving him, they gave him treatment. And so that, well, obviously whatever they were doing, or whether it was them giving him treatment, like they probably gave him antibodies, and that kind of got rid of the situation. So Cal wasn't feeling it. But it's like, it seemed like Cal was seeing through his eyes, and it seemed like he was seeing through his, because he was like, I was telling my mom, I was in hospital, I was telling my mom to hurry, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's like, it wasn't just a one-way thing, it kind of worked both ways in that regard. So, but luckily it stops for now, and Cal seems like he's okay, but that doesn't change the fact is they will start the experiments up again, and whatever happened in that circumstance is going to happen again unless they find them and stop them. And hence why I'm kind of like, okay, so that's probably going to circulate into that situation of Grace being like, you left, and things kind of turn on complicated. That's where my inklings are for all of this. But I am curious to see where this all goes, especially now, because like I said, it seems like Vance isn't necessarily the bad guy, but I'm curious to see what happens with the whole Jarrett situation, because now at the very least, Jarrett's in the know, and he'll probably do whatever it takes to protect Michaela, because he cares about her. But also the whole situation with Vance potentially knowing the truth, because the NSA shows up at the place where they were, and they found like one of the I don't know what the medical term for it would be, the little thing they connect the wires and stuff to you when they're trying to, I guess, keep up your signal, trying to monitor your body, the little circle things. Like they found one of them, and it's like, oh, it's fresh. So it's like, yeah, someone got out of here in an instant. Because I was curious what made them run. I was like, okay, because when you look at it, you see Ben's tablet, and it said Unified Dynamic Systems, and I was curious whether was that implying that it was one of their tablets, or was it just implying that that's what Ben is looking into now? I think it was more so that angle of things, because their connection is all over the place, because they're the ones that supplied the buses that they, like I said, it's like shell company within like subsidiary type of stuff. But I was wondering if it was because Ben was doing stuff on his tablet, whether that was, but I think it's like, no, that's more so implying that like Ben is looking into them. That's what I'm thinking, but it might also be like it's their tablet. But it's like, no, that's not what set them off. It took the NSA looking into them, because I guess they have like connections to be like, oh, like what government agencies are looking into this stuff, So they kind of give them a heads up, hence why they were able to kind of get out of there in time. So like I said, with the whole Vance situation, at the very least, they have one potential ally. He's just trying to figure this stuff out just as much as anyone else is. But to be fair, once again, at the very least, it's Vance. We don't know how deep it runs, because there could be people at the NSA who are also a part of this whole conspiracy as well. But another interesting thing came up too, and that was from Michaela. See, I did it again. That's going to bother the crap out of me, because I wrote it down as Mackenzie like twice in my notes. I'm just going to end up saying that over and over again because I'm an idiot. Now it makes me go, have I been saying Mackenzie before now? And I've just been thinking I've been saying Michaela. Now I'm getting paranoid about it. Crap. Michaela brought up a good point of like, maybe we don't 100% know how this calling situation works, because it's hard to say like what is what we're supposed to do. Like what I'm saying is, because in the grand scheme of things, it like Ben kind of feels like he didn't really do nothing when he went to go see Vance. In actuality, he did, because he brought that all up to Vance. That led to Vance looking into it, which led to this group, Unified Dynamic Systems, or at the very least, whoever's really behind all of this, to bail and uproot and leave. And because of that, they stopped doing whatever they were doing to Marco, whether it be like the experiment they were conducting on him was making him sick, hence the transfer, or whether he was just sick and they were so content on finishing the experiment that they didn't care about that and took care of him afterwards, which led to everything kind of being copacetic. But who knows, So it's kind of like everything kind of played out and led to like, the right resolution, which kind of begs the question. I mean, to be fair, the whole Michaela situation of stopping that deal, that what the ATF, is that it? ATF? Yeah, operation. Like, I still kind of wonder, will anything come up about that being like, in actuality, you stopping that actually saved the day, because things could have been worse otherwise, because we ended up finding out later on. That's what I'm wondering, but probably not. That's probably just probably meant to be a storyline reason to kind of make things kind of a little complicated between Jared and Michaela. But like continuing, the fact is that the whole calling situation isn't as clear cut as you think it is, because it's like, was this the whole point, was to kind of circumvent this at least long enough to make sure that Cal survived, gave them the time needed so that they can go forward with kind of pushing this forward, because now they kind of have to wait a little while before they continue to experiment. But granted, they're still going to continue to experiment. So now it's like, how does this whole calling situation work? Is like the question. The three, Michaela, Ben, and Sanvi are. I mean, Sanvi's kind of taking it as like, hey, it's a win. Cal is okay now, but obviously Ben's like, yeah, but there's more to this. Like, I doubt this is the end. But it's like, was it always only to get them up to this point, or was the whole point to get to Marco? Or, is it like a one domino in a long string of dominoes? A lot of thoughts are kind of about that. So I'm very interested to see where all of this takes us in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.